Good afternoon, folks. I have a few minutes here to do a watch collection video. I've got a couple in the queue, and this is actually my first revisit of a collection I've already looked at. Viewer watch collection number 12, Mark L. He sent me an email, and he was asking for some advice on a watch to get, and I didn't answer him in time, unfortunately. I apologize again for that, Mark. And he actually got the watch, which looks awesome, by the way, and we'll get to that in a moment. But he said he still wanted me to go ahead with a video, which was just sort of looking at, he's gotten quite a few watches since I did that video, which was back on April 29th, so a little over about 3.5 months ago. So I'm going to go through his email and start by, let's take a look at what he had when I did the video, okay? Okay, as you can see, he's got an Omega, he's got a Seiko, he's got a IWC, Jaeger LeCoultre, and a Alexander, I think it's a Russian watch, I forget what it was. So he's got 5 watches in that video. Let me just see, Alexander Shoro, something or other. Anyways, so we're going to talk about what Mark has. He's been a busy boy. So let's take a look. I'm going to start by reading his email, and then I'll show you a picture of his collection. He's gotten 4 watches since five watches, including the one he just got. So, hi JC, I've attached the photo of my new watches for your review and a family photo of all my current watches, including those that you've already done in the first video about 3 months ago. So let me start by saying I went on to hunt for a GMT watch. However, it happens to be none of those that I had shortlisted to you. I have given up on the Frederick Constant World Timer and Christopher Ward Trident GMT after watching the review and seeing those comments given by others. But I will try to save that up for the Batman. Okay, so that's interesting that the video actually mattered. People and your comments, viewers, played a role in Mark's decision. You or the audience might be asking, what have I bought then? I have bought the following since. Well, let's take a look at his collection as a whole so you can see the array. This does not include his most recent watch, which we'll get to in a moment. By the way, what we are listening to right now is Cedar Walton. The song is Blue Train off his album Mobius, which is a classic jazz funk album from the mid-70s. Cedar Walton is an amazing keyboard player. Anyways, so as you can see, Mark has a collection. In this picture, there's 9 watches. So he has 10 watches in his collection now, including the 10th watch, which we'll talk about in a moment. So he bought an Omega Seamaster GMT 2234.50.00. That's the one with the bezel with the 2 tones. The kind of, it shifts. You have the black on top with the silver markers, and then on the bottom the silver with the black markers. Orient Bambino Singapore 50th Anniversary Limited Edition, 500 pieces, sold in a pair of stainless steel and Rolls gold plated. Those were both new. That is pretty cool, I gotta say. I'll comment in a moment. Hamilton Pan Europe Blue Dial 80 hours Power Reserve H35405741 new. Some really cool pieces. You know, the Bambino, this is a limited edition, so I imagine those cost more, quite a bit more is my guess. Especially if it's rose gold. Oh, it's rose gold plated. So, but the Bambino, the standard Bambino, I think a lot of people, I think TGV at the Urban Gentry, who my thoughts are with TGV right now. He's in the hospital. If those probably everyone who watches this also watches his channel, but not vice versa. But he's having surgery tomorrow, so our thoughts should be definitely with him. I might do a little tribute video just to sort of send him goodwill. Now I have to do it, right? Because I mentioned it. Anyways, so yeah, the Omega Seamaster, you know, you can't go wrong. It's in the same family as my Omega Seamaster, my two, with the sword hands, and just a really cool watch. Bambinos, you know, yeah, as I was saying, TGV did a review of I think it's like $120. I mean, really one of the best deals out there. And then the Hamilton Pan Europe, you know, Mark, I was looking into this myself, although I really like the chronograph because it has the bi-compacts. But the chronograph is a lot more expensive. But yeah, it's one that I've almost bought in the past. I like the blue dial more, but it's actually more expensive and it doesn't have the open case back. And one of the things I love about Hamilton, they make great open case backs. Their watches the engines are just so cool inside them. This is still Cedar Walton. I'll just leave it on for now. This is Soho. This is the song, same album. Really, really slick Fender Rhodes, which to me is one of those instruments. Fender Rhodes is a kind of electric piano that was popular in the 70s. Herbie Hancock was probably the most famous Fender Rhodes player, but just really slick electric keyboard, but they still sound organic, which is really nice, unlike modern synthesizers to some degree. So let me continue on with Mark's. I've chosen the Omega over the others as the watch was offered to me at a very decent price of US $1,450, which is a really good price. From a reputable pre-owned watch store, and I love the unique bezel design. The Orient was bought to celebrate Nation's birthday, and now it has become a couple watch that I share occasionally with my wife when we are out together. Very cute, his and her Orient Bambinos. Lastly, I was attracted to the design of Hamilton Pan Europe Blueface and the impressive 80 hours of power reserve, which is the longest I've heard of. I hope you can share with me in what direction has my collection been heading. Is it getting better or worse? Well, I really like those 4 editions, Mark. I like all of them. I think it's really cool to have that paired Orient group. I will never, you know, I love Omega Seamasters. It's probably my favorite all-time model of watch. And the Hamilton's really cool too. So I mean, your collection's getting larger, and you have to figure out what is the right size for you. You know, I mean, looking at your collection as a whole, you know, yeah, you've got a lot of nice watches, a nice diversity. You've got 3 white face. You've got the blue as well. They got the Hamilton, and then you've got something else, which we'll get to in a moment. I like your collection a lot. I think it's a really cool collection. The only thing I worry about for you is at what point will you feel like it's getting to be too much and not be wearing bigger watches, and then you simply just sell some off. You know, it's as simple as that. Like, you could sell me your Marine Master for really cheap, because I still want one of those things. So yeah, I think it's getting better personally. I mean, but that's because you're adding nice pieces, right? So Mark tells us a little bit more about himself. To tell you more about myself, when I buy watches, I do not usually weight the resale value in the future, but instead I will try to get the watch as cheap as possible through my local contacts or the web. I don't really weigh resale. I probably should, because I flip so often. And most importantly, the design of the watch must appeal to me, and it must not be homages. Homages has been a huge topic on some of the watch channels. I've tried to stay out of it for the most part. I did make a couple comments. I'm personally not attracted to homages. I'm not offended by them. They don't bother me, but I don't know. The only one that I've considered getting the Steinhardt all-black version of the Rolex Submariner. I don't know what they call it. It's the ocean black in DLC. I think Gentleman's Life has it, and he did a review. I think it's a slick-looking all-black watch, but I would be getting it for the watch itself, how it looks, not because it's an homage. So I understand not really caring about homages. And for me, also, the design is the most important characteristic. I'm a very visual, aesthetic person. So I like, the aesthetics is the most important thing. Maybe I'm superficial. I wear my watches in a rotation basic. I will change one each new day, or even two if I'm attending function in the evening. I rarely repeat the same watch over 2 days. This way I can have equal wrist time with all my watches. So it sounds like you're happy with the largish collection. Although again, everyone has their tipping points. So Mark, I don't remember what you do for a living, but it seems like, with looking at your collection, it seems like you're certainly comfortable making a good living, can afford to buy watches and to expand. And, even though I'm personally drawn to gradually shrinking my collection, I don't see why you shouldn't just continue to expand until you're comfortable. Like, let the collection grow naturally and organically, and not worry about, buy the watches you like, keep on going with it as you're enjoying yourself, as you can afford it, and as your wife is happy with you in that regard, and see how it goes. And then when you get to that point where you're like, too much, then just pull back. Or if you find yourself not wearing or enjoying some of the watches you own, sell them off. So here we're giving away what your next watch is, because Mark says, my next target looks like a Tudor Heritage Chrono Blue Dial. Seems like I caught JC's blue bugs. Yes, I love blue dials. So Mark says, what do you think of the watch? And by getting that, am I on the right track? Maybe you could recommend some other models that you think is suitable for me. And what do you think will be my short-term and long-term goal? Your personal and viewer opinion will be appreciated, as I'll be taking all comments as a consideration. He also sent a token of appreciation, which is very kind, Mark. I do really appreciate that. So let's take a look at, Mark ended up buying the Tudor. So let's take a look at his new watch. So what do you think, folks? I think it's a winner. I think it's a really cool looking watch. It's very retro looking. It's very, I guess 70s. I don't know when these came out, but it definitely looks, see the jazz funk, it suits the watch. It's interesting, you seem to be going for both a retro and blue dial aesthetic, at least your last couple of watches with the Hamilton and this one. Yeah, I think it's really cool. I'd like to hear more from you. You didn't comment in your email how you're feeling about it, what you think about it. Let me just double check and make sure. I did read your last email, but I want to make sure that I didn't miss it. Where am I? Okay, here we go. Loading. All right. So Mark says, hold on, taking me a little bit. So yeah, Mark didn't comment about how it looks to him, or how he likes it. So please tell us, Mark, what you think. I think it's a really cool watch. I think you made a good purchase. I mean, my wrap is the same always, pretty much. I'm not interested in crafting your collection or anyone else's collection. What I thought, to suit my tastes. To me, that's ridiculous. It's absurd. And I know that some watch pundits like to do that. I don't like to do that. What I like to do is give you feedback and reflections and help support you, whoever it is, whether it's Mark or somebody else, in developing your own style, your own taste, and being happy with that and enjoying your collection. Don't feel like you have to buy a watch because people say it's the watch to buy. Find those watches that really sing to you. I think that's a term that Jeffrey McMahon has used before. Does the watch sing to you? And if it doesn't, then flip it. let go of it. Or if it doesn't have doesn't fit, you don't need to absolutely love every watch, especially if you have some financial flexibility. If funds are really tight, I would definitely, as a general rule for people, only buy watches that you really love, or keep watches that you really love. But if you have some flexibility, play with it. Let me just see if, all right. Play with it a little bit. Allow yourself to explore. So Mark, you've asked if I think you're on the right track, where I think you should go short and long term. I think you should continue exploring and enjoying watches. I think you should continue to, as you can, look at different watches that are out there, see what suits your tastes, and when a watch really sings to you, buy it. If you can afford it. And there's not really a right or wrong way to go, or rather, I would say the right way to go is to follow your own sense of yourself, your tastes, what you're enjoying. Are you feeling? Because the other thing that we all often, I think every watch collector has to go through this phase, and some are in it for years, which is almost this feeling of like nausea, of just like, I need to fill the void, I need to get more and more watches, I need to buy and buy and buy and buy. And it's this endless cycle. And unfortunately, the more you buy, the more that it's almost like, it's kind of like the more sugar you eat, the more sugar you want. It doesn't crave. It's like false filler, it's like a junk food feeling. So, in 3 months, Mark, you've bought in 5 watches. So that's a lot. That's a lot of watches by anyone's standards. If I were you, in the short term, I would sit on your collection as it is. Don't buy anything else. You have 10 watches. Rotate through them. See how you feel with the collection you have. Over a month or two, look back and say, well, what watches aren't I wearing? And if there are watches that you're not wearing, revisit those watches. And if you rediscover a love for them, keep them. If not, then maybe let them go. But yeah, I would definitely pause for a moment, because you've bought so many watches in the last few months, and some really nice pieces. So try to enjoy those watches that you have, and see where it goes from there. Long term, it's just, you've got your life. I don't know how old you are, Mark, but presumably you have many years ahead of you, and your tastes are going to change. You're going to just follow it and let it unfold and enjoy the process. I mean, that's really, this is where watch collecting is a microcosm. And I think we get a little of life as a whole. And I think we get a little hung up on, like, how do we plan it all out? What's the end game? There's a watch lexicon term that I'm going to do at some point, which is collection end game. And the idea of, like, having an end game in mind for your collection, how to get it to that final complete place. And there really is no end game. You know what I mean? I think we all hopefully, when we approach death, which is the end game of life, hopefully we can look back and say, yeah, I tasted the things I really wanted to taste. I experienced a lot of things, some things I didn't want to experience, some things I didn't expect. But overall, it was fulfilling. It was a good life to have, and now I'm ready to move on to whatever the next adventure is, if there is one. But if we try to plan for that, I think it's just not going to work. I think we need to just allow ourselves to explore, to see what comes up, and to enjoy this crazy ride of life, and also in the microcosm of watch collecting. I think as I said, you asked about your short and your long term, and I would say again, your short term, take a pause, enjoy your collection, see how it all settles, see what become your primary watches, see what become your secondary watches, see which ones you don't like as much and maybe don't wear. Long term, just who knows? See what happens. Maybe 5 years from now, you will own none of these watches, and you'll have, you'll be like a Rolex guy, or you'll be a Patek guy, or who knows, I just see where it goes, and check in every so often, because it'd be cool to see that. Who knows if I'm going to be doing this channel in 5 years, but maybe I am, and maybe we'll see different iterations of Mark's collection. But yeah, I love your new watch. I think it's a really cool watch. In a way, it really stands out. I mean, you have a really nice collection, but I think what I like about the new one, it's got a little more attitude. Like it really stands out as like, yeah, people are going to notice that watch. I think it really stands out. It's a unique looking piece. So congratulations, and enjoy your collection, and let us know. All right, later. Good afternoon, folks. I have a few minutes here to do a watch collection video. I've got a couple in the queue, and this is actually my first revisit of a collection I've already looked at. Viewer watch collection number 12, Mark L. He sent me an email, and he was asking for some advice. Watches for your review, and a family photo of all my current watches, including those that you've already done in the first video about 3 months ago. So let me start by saying I went on to hunt for a GMT watch. However, it happens to be none of those that I had shortlisted to you. I have given up on the Frederick Constant World Timer and Christopher Ward Trident GMT after watching the review and seeing those comments given by others. But I will try to save that up for the Batman. Okay, so that's interesting that the video ice on a watch to get, and I didn't answer him in time, unfortunately. I apologize again for that, Mark. And he actually got the watch, which looks awesome, by the way, and we'll get to that in a moment. But he said he still wanted me to go ahead with a video, which was just sort of looking at, he's gotten quite a few watches since I did that video, which was back in April 29th, so a little over about 3.5 months ago. So I'm going to go through his email and start by, let's take a look at what he had when I did the video, okay? Okay, as you can see, he's got an Omega, he's got a Seiko, he's got a IWC, Jaeger LeCoultre, and a Alexander, I think it's a Russian watch, I forget what it was. So he's got 5 watches in that video. Let me just see, Alexander Shoro, something or other. Anyways, so we're going to talk about what Mark has. He's been a busy boy. So let's take a look. I'm going to start by reading his email, and then I'll show you a picture of his collection. He's gotten 4 watches since five watches, including the one he just got. So, hi JC, I've attached the photo of my new